Employee State Insurance Act 1948. So this is one left. This is also relating to the factories only, the workers, when the workers are working in a hazardous situation. So, as per industrial law, what happens? You have to protect them. So, these act came to protect the workers. So, that's why though they work in a very hazardous situation with machines or in a factory in a very tough situation, so they should be also physically needs to be, they need physical protection, they needs actually. So ESI Act, that is Employee State Insurance Act 1948, is governed by the Employee State Insurance Act 1948. Means whatever insurance the workers will do, whoever workers are there in a factory, that full insurance portion is going to be governed by the State Insurance Act 1948. So today we will discuss like what provisions, what are the terms are there under this ESI Act 1948. So it is says like that this act, Employee State Insurance Act, is governed by employees, because in the act only the name employees are there. So the term employees are there in the name of the act. So this act is totally governed by the employees. Now, this this is an act, but these under this act, actually there is ESI corporation is there who does all this work. Like whenever a factory or an industrial entity will do insurance for a worker, na, with whom they will do? They will do with the ESI corporation, that is Employee State Insurance Corporation. Now, what do you mean by this term corporation? Corporation is nothing but it's a body corporate, like a company. Now, you know the meaning of a company. Now, whatever you know about the meaning of the company, you have to write the same meaning under body corporate itself, because this ESI corporation is a body corporate which is having perpetual succession and common seal. It can sue others and it can be sued by others. Same definition of a company, because ESI corporation is a company. And this is whenever you are forming this company or this body corporate, whose main object is to do all this insurance related work, and they do all this insurance related work as per the rules and regulation of ESI Act 1948. This act extends to whole of India, including Jammu and Kashmir. So that's why they have not written anything extra. So it includes whole of India from the first day. What is the main objective of this act? The main objective of this act is to provide certain benefits to the employees during sickness, maternity, employment injury. So while during your work period, in your working hours, if you get injured during your working hours due to your nature of work, if you get injured or else if you become sick, okay, due to your employment nature, then the main objective of this act is to give you protection. Okay? So this act main objective is to give protection to the employees during the time of their sickness, maternity for the woman, and employment injury during their working hours. And lastly, this act is applicable to all factories other than seasonal factories. Very important under this act. So, what is factory? We have read from, you can read from your Factories Act, like that definition where 20 or more workers have worked at least one day in the last year. Okay, then only we can call that entity as a factory. But this act is specifically applicable for all types of factories other than seasonal factories. Now the question comes under this act, what do you mean by seasonal factories. Seasonal factories, from the name itself, you can write something or you can predict something like these are the factories from where some seasonal things, production or some seasonal things they manufacture or they process some seasonal things. Like you have to think about all those seasonal fruits or seasonal things like, for example, cotton, jute, coffee, rubber, sugar, tea. They don't come whole year or every time. Some specific season is there when they comes. And rest of the season, the process can be done or processing of those things can be done in the factory. But they are seasonal, you can say. Like this is not a goods, like any time you can manufacture or you can produce it. So this is on the nature. Okay, this is as per act of God or natural things, agricultural things. So it is not in your hand. So these are the seasonal things which usually come seasonally, and but processing needs na, because think about tea. You will take the leaves, then all those processing will happen from that leaves. Then the actual tea leaves will come. You have to dry it out and you can sell it. You have to do the packing and all those things. Then you can sell. So all after getting those leaves from the land, many processes are there. So all those processes you have to do in a factory. So seasonal factories are those factories which actually is exclusively engaged in one or more of the following manufacturing processes. What type of manufacturing? Either cotton, jute, coffee, rubber, sugar, tea, etc. This type of product, if you are manufacturing or if your factories are big, then your factories will be treated as seasonal, and ESI Act is not applicable for seasonal factories. Any factories it is applicable other than seasonal factories. Now, though the act name is Employees State Insurance Act, so I think you are having some concept and ideas about the term insurance. Many people are having the insurance policies and all. What do you mean by the insurance term? That we actually wants to secure a life. There are many things, life insurance. If you are having a car, then car insurance. Nowadays, mobile insurance, if you buy a costly mobile, then you can do the insurance for that. So the thing is like that, when if it happens, any damage happens in future or within that period, you can claim that damage money. For that, you have to pay the premium for that. Now, obviously, whenever it is about factory or it is about the factory workers, you have to think about their life, about their injury, about their sickness. Got it? So, in companies, what happens now? You know, the companies are having policy like all the dependents are also will be insured or will get insured along with the actual employee. Got it? Like, for example, like if my husband is getting the medical expenditures or medical benefits from their office, so his dependents also will get, like his mother, father, daughter, son, unmarried daughter or minor, wife, all these are dependent people. So in case of their sickness also, he can claim from his office. So in this case, in this insurance act, though it is for the benefit of the employees, not only employees and his dependents also. Now, under this act, what do you mean by the term dependent? It may be a widow. That means the husband is not alive. The widow can get the benefit. Legitimate or adopted son. What do you mean by legitimate? Legitimate means legal. Okay, authorized by law. It's your children only. Adopted son is also allowed if you are having proper papers. If you don't have proper papers, then it will be treated as illegitimate. That is not authorized by law. Who has attained the age of 25 years and an unmarried legitimate. If any unmarried daughter or if any unmarried son who is not working, if like this adopted daughter, if they are there in your house and depending on you, then they will be treated as dependents. Got it? But daughter after marriage, they are not dependent on you normally. But if the daughter is unmarried and he is legitimate, means authorized by law, legitimate term means authorized by law, then that person will also get the benefit from your factory or entity or your organization. A widowed mother. Got it? Your father is, the employee's father is not there, but mother is there and she is widowed. Then obviously the mother is dependent on the children. She means the employee can claim the benefits, medical benefits from for his mother, widowed mother. If wholly dependent on the earning of the insured person at the time of his death, a legitimate or adopted son or daughter who has attained the age of 25 years of his age. So the thing is, for example, the actual employee is not alive, okay, at the time of his death, if still in his house, his authorized daughter is there, legitimate means authorized by law, legal daughter, son, everyone is there, and their age is 25 years, and still they are dependent on the employees. Then after the death of that employee also, they will get the benefit from the employee. So not employee, employee's organization. Same for his parents also, widowed mother also. Like in case if employee is not alive, if after the death of the employee also, his dependents like this, the legal son or adopted son will get the benefits. Similarly, his parents or widowed mother, if his father is not there, then his mother is eligible to get that benefit from his organization. Next is minor illegitimate son. Minor illegitimate son means, illegitimate means not authorized by law. But why not authorized by law? I have written here. But why he will get the benefit? Because he is minor. Because that maturity, or he is not working, or no one is there to take care. He is minor or she is minor. That's why that person will get the benefit. An unmarried illegitimate. If any unmarried illegitimate daughter is there who is still depending on the employees. Okay. Now, I can say like this person is a daughter, for example, or a sister like that, daughter. For example, my friend's daughter is there, my friend and her husband is not alive. So, I have taken that girl with me and I have said, okay, I will take care of her. But currently, I don't have that actual legal adoption papers and all with me. But yes, I can take care of her, or I can means I can say like she is my unmarried illegitimate daughter. So whatever from my organization, I can register like that, so that after my death also she or he may claims that money. So they are also can be treated as dependents. Minor brother who is minor, unmarried sister or widowed sister, if a minor, if they are still depending on me, then they will be treated as a dependent. After my death also, they will get the benefit from my organization. Widowed daughter-in-law. If there is a daughter-in-law and she is widowed and her life is going on, and that is also depends on me, my earnings, then also that person can be treated as dependent. Minor child of predeceased son. What do you mean by the term predeceased? Predeceased means my son died before me. That is known as predeceased. Got it? So my son is not there, but son's children is there who are minor, and they are dependents on their grandfather. Then also they can claim that benefit from my organization. Minor child of a predeceased daughter. If my daughter also died before, but her children were there with me and they are dependents on my earnings, I am taking care of them, then also they will be coming under the term dependent. Paternal grandparent. If no parents of the insured person is alive. Okay. So paternal grandparents means what? My father's father and mother. So my father is not there, but my paternal grandparents is there. So if in case my actual parents are not there, but they are dependent on their grandchildren, then also I can claim the money from my paternal grandparents. They will also come under the term dependent. So these you have to read who will be coming under the term dependent and who will be treated under this act as a dependent of an employee. Now, under ESI Act, I said the main objective is what? They will give benefit to the employees during their sickness, maternity and employment injury. Now the question comes, what do you mean by an employment injury? What do you mean by the term employment injury? So employment injury, on the other hand, it is known as occupational disease in course of employment. Like during your employment period, if you met with an accident, okay, or if means continuously I am working with fire, and afterwards what happens? My eyes got blind. I became blind. So my blindness actually due to this occupational nature of occupation. My occupation is like the whole life I have worked with fire. Okay, and due to this, suddenly I met with an accident and I got blind. So these blindness means I became blind is not due to my own fault or others' fault. This can be known as occupational disease. And whatever injury or you will get injured due to your employment purpose, those injury will be known as employment injury. Now, under this, the definition of family. What do you mean by family? This question though you will read in tax also. In tax also, you are having the same thing. What do you mean by family? So what you know, what you are having any concept of family, this is almost same in everywhere, in legal things everywhere, like your spouse, your minor, legitimate or adopted child dependent upon the insured person. So whatever you have read about the dependent, na, you will see maximum are common here. So one time if you read, so here also they are only the part of your family. That's why they are getting the benefit from your organization. So family means spouse. If you are having legal minor children, okay, or adopted child who are dependent on you, or any children who are wholly dependent on your earnings, but still he attains the age of 21 years of age, who is receiving the education or due to his education purpose, he wants that money, then yes, he can claim. Unmarried daughter, child who is having physical or mentally abnormality or injury somehow, then also he will be a part of your family. Your dependent parents, whose income from all sources does not exceed such income as may be prescribed by the CG. So your dependent parents are actually your family only. In case of an insured person is unmarried, then his or her parents are not alive, then minor brother or sister, if wholly dependent on the employee, then they will come under the term family. So the definition of the term family under ESI, because you know in this act you will see like under ESI it's all about sickness now. Now whenever you will become sick, you are in a hospital, you are in a ICU, someone should go on behalf of you to claim the money, or someone should claim the money. Then to whom that means the money will be given. That's why all this term has been inserted in this act. Dependents may go, family may claim the money. All these people can claim the money on behalf of the actual person. And in case if the actual person died due to the occupational disease, then though the family and the dependent are eligible to receive the that benefits from the organization. So that's why the meaning of family dependents are very important under this act to know. Any confusion till now? Can ask. Next is permanent partial disablement. Permanently partial disablement happens to you. For example, due to your occupational or employment, due to your employment, nature of employment, you lost your uh, left hand. You lost your left hand. So currently you are having only one hand, that is right. So these things means what? Permanently, you don't have left hand. So it is permanent that you are disabled. But partial, still you can work. Okay. So whenever you are okay, but some partial parts or organ permanently became disabled, that is known as permanent partial disablement. Okay. So such disablement of a permanent nature has reduced the earning capacity. Obviously, before with two hands, whatever work you did, okay, what capacity you are having, but currently as you are having one hand, you became disabled. You can't do so much work than like before. So obviously it will reduce your earning capacity of an employee in every employment. And still under this act, it is known as not 100% injury, because still you are having something to work, like still you are having one hand to run your life. That's why this type of injury will be known as permanent partial disablement. Means permanently some part organ or partial organs got disabled of yours. This is permanent total disablement. For example, you became blind. So none of your eyes are working properly. So both the eyes got damaged. That means what? You are total disabled. You cannot see the world. What it's a 100% injury. You cannot see means you cannot work also. So you became permanently, you lost something permanently. That means if you lost one eye means what? It will come under the previous one. Permanent partial disablement. Still one eye is there. You can see the world. But whenever you are having not a single eye left with you, such type of injury will become permanent total disablement. So totally you will become disabled. So this is known as 100% injury. So during this permanent partial disablement or permanent total disablement, you are eligible to get the ESI. You can claim the amount from the ESI in case if this disablement is happened due to your employment purpose, nature of employment, or this is a occupational disease. Got it? Now, there are some temporary disablement. Temporary means what? For some days I became disabled. Like currently I am very sick or I am in a hospital. Again, I came back after 1 month and I am fit enough to work in a factory or in your organization. So temporarily I became disabled due to some reason, but it's not a permanent things, not a permanent partial things. Temporarily I am sick. For example, temporary disablement means maternity is coming under temporary disablement. Maternity means for some months you have taken a pause. Now what happens for some months I am sick. Whenever I will give the delivery, I will be fine. I can join the job and I can start working. So this type of thing or this type of disablement, you are eligible to get the ESI. You can claim the amount from ESI. And this what happened? This requires medical treatment. And this is like this, temporarily you are incapable of doing the work. Once that temporary period will get over, you can start your work again like before. So this is coming, this type of things like maternity or it's a temporary sickness, fever, okay, something happens like my hand broken or my leg broken, okay, all these things will come under the temporary disablement. For some days I took a leave as I am not well, but after some days temporarily it is like I became disabled, but after 1 month or 2 months I will be okay and I will again do my work like before. So there is no like reduction of my employment capacity or like that. earning capacity or like that. I will again become okay afterwards. Such type of injury or disablement will come under the temporary disablement. Now, whenever we are talking about ESI, so obviously here we are talking about the insurance amount. This insurance amount will be claimed by the employees from the principal employer. So here also, like principal employer, the person is going to conduct and is going to regulate all these matters. Now the question is, who is principal employer? Already we have read what do you mean by principal employer in last all the acts. Like in case of a factory, who will be the principal employer? Manager, occupier, legal representative of the owner or occupier. In case of any establishment, authority, if any authority is controlled by the government, then such government will appoint any person who will act as a principal employer. Other case, HOD, head of the department. And in other cases also, in other establishments, the person who is having ultimate control over the premises, that person will act as a principal employer. So this principal employer is going to communicate or interact with their employees relating to these ESI matters. What are the procedures? First of all the employees in a factories or the establishment on which this act will become applicable, they needs to be insured as per prescribed manner under ESI Act, first of all. So as per ESI Act, whoever employees will work in your factory, in the factory on which factory the act becomes applicable, all the employees of such factories must get insured, okay, as per ESI Act. Next is, here also the contribution things are there. Some contribution will be done by the insured person, and insured person shall pay the contribution towards the insurance fund through their employer, who will also pay the contribution. So employer will pay certain contribution, employees will pay certain contribution. Both the contribution will go to ESI fund, like PF last day we have discussed. So as per latest revision with effect from 1st July 2019, the rates got changed. Employer's contribution is 3.25 of the wages. Employers is going to contribute towards this ESI fund, that is 3.25% of the wages of the employees. And employee will contribute 0.75% of the wages towards this fund. Okay. Afterwards, at the time of their sickness of the employees, whenever they will become sick, or at the time of accident, or at the time of maternity, they can claim the benefit from this fund, whatever contribution both of them did, employees and employers both. Now let us see ESI Act. The chapter we are doing is ESI Act. Now, as per this act, central government is having power to establish an authority. Okay, who will actually will do the act as per this ESI Act. The central government will form an authority, and that is actually ESI Corporation. So ESI Act authorizes central government to establish this ESI Corporation, Employee State Insurance Corporation. ESI Corporation is a body corporate or a company whose main object or whose main work is to administer the employees' state insurance scheme. So they will actually administer like the ESI schemes. Whatever has been whatever schemes will be done by the employees of the factory, those schemes is going to be taken care or administered by this ESI corporation, and this ESI corporation is formed by central government, and the main objective of ESI corporation is to look after all the scheme as per this ESI Act. Got it? And this ESI corporation is a company. What you have read under Companies Act, same things are there under this corporation. So this is nothing but a body corporate. Same definition, having perpetual succession. That means it also got incorporation. It will exist from incorporation till winding up. Having a council, can sue others, can be sued by others, can buy property in its name, can sell its property to any person. Okay, whatever features, whatever characteristics you have read for a company, all will come under this ESI corporation, because this is a body corporate. And this is not only ESI corporation. Whatever you will read, like this is a body corporate. For example, we have read LLP also body corporate, same definition. Now ESI corporation is also a body corporate, same definition, like a company will come. So ESI corporation actually controls all these ESI schemes of these organizations. ESI corporation is formed and established by the central government, and ESI corporation actually follows whether the scheme has been followed by the employees as per ESI Act or not. This is actually needs to be taken care by this corporation. Now, composition means constitution of this corporation. This is the company, right? Body corporate. Who are there under this corporation and working for such scheme? Under this corporation, one chairman is there, a vice chairman is there, and other members are also there, who actually has been taken from the employer side, employee side, state government, union territories, and medical professions. Okay, so other members will be taken who is representing the interest from. Some members will be taken from the employers. Some will be taken means among the employees. State government people will be selected as a member, or union territories from union territories, or some people will act as a medical means doctor will be appointed under this corporation. And 3 members will be taken from the parliament, and 1 director general of the corporation who is ex officio, means ex officer, ex director was there, ex director general of the corporation. This corporation means ESI corporation. So some ex officer who was the director general before, that person can be act as a member under this corporation, that is ESI corporation. And whatever order, decision will be taken under this corporation, all needs to be authenticated by the signature of Director General. So this officer, Director General of the corporation, is going to sign all the documents of the corporation, ESI corporation, to make those paper valid. Got it? Like normal companies, we have read to make those document valid. Who signs? Who do the signature? 2 director out of 1. 2 director must sign out of 2. 1 must be MD and CS to make those paper valid. And here, to make the documents or papers of the corporation valid, who needs to sign? Director General of the corporation will sign to make the papers valid. Now, here all about contribution, right? Employees will contribute, employers will contribute. Now, where this contribution will go? To a fund. And though it's a fund of state insurance, that's why the name is also Employee State Insurance Fund. So all the contribution paid under this act is going to pay it into this fund only. And this fund is known as ESI fund, and this is totally controlled by ESI corporation. Got it? So CG is, the thing is, CG is going to make ESI corporation. This ESI corporation is going to control or administer the scheme as well as ESI fund as per ESI Act. Now, here the all contributions are coming in this fund. From this fund, what are the expenditures they can do? What are utilization of this fund? From this fund only, the benefits, payment of benefits, they will give the benefits amount or the amount they whatever will be claimed by the insured person, those amount will be paid to the insured person. Okay, medical benefits to the insured person or to his family. From this fund only, they can pay the fees, allowance to the members of the corporation. Okay, and there are also other committees, other boards in the corporation who takes the decision or jointly who takes the decision. Standing committee, medical benefit council, regional board. So whatever fees or allowances or expenditures needs to be done for these board, they will do from this fund only. And just now we have read about these person are working under corporation, chairman, vice chairman, other members. So they are working obviously in exchange of money, salary. So salary also needs to be paid from this fund. Salary, leave, joining time allowances, whatever allowance salaries are needs to be paid, compensatory allowances, gratuities, compassionate allowances, pension, contributions to PF or other benefit funds. So all those members, salaries, allowances, benefits, PF, whatever amount needs to be given to these people are actually paid from these fund, ESI fund. In case of you are establishing or maintaining any hospital, dispensaries, other institutions, in that cases you can take money from this fund and you can spend here. Payment of contribution to any state government. In case you need to pay to the government, it may be state government, okay, or central government or local authority or corporation, any fees or charges you need to pay to any type of local authority or state government or any private body towards the cost of medical treatment or etc. So these contribution also you can spend from this fund. Got it. Now obviously the corporation is a body corporate or a company. So this is, though it's a company, you need to maintain balance sheet, proper balance sheet. You need to value proper assets, liabilities of such company. So that's why auditing is also needed. Audit of the accounts of this ESI corporation is also necessary, though it is a body corporate. So for audit purpose, whoever will come to do the audit, you have to pay the fees to that CA. That fees, all cost, including all expenditures of auditing the accounts, whatever amount you will spend for auditing the accounts of the corporation, you can spend from your this ESI fund. And there is an employees insurance court is there. In case of any dispute arise, you can go to this court with the dispute for the solution. So now you are going to court means what? You have to pay the fees. There are a lot of expenditures are involved. You are going to court fees, we called it. So that expenditures or that money also you can take from ESI fund. So this is also a very important question, direct question under this act. Like, what do you mean by ESI fund and utilization? Means what is ESI fund or short note on ESI fund, and explain on the utilization of this fund. Utilization means what are the amount you can spend from this fund. So these are the points. Others are also there. Payment of some, if any contracts you entered into, okay, by the corporation, like ESI corporation entered into any contract. or any other bodies of corporation had entered into any contract. So contract means what? We have already read Indian Contract Act. There is also some money involved. You have to go to court, you have to make the agreement. So all those charges, fees, payment of sum, all these are involved. So that money also you can spend from this fund. So court fees, see, tribunal, whenever they will give the award or order to you, you have to pay the sum to them. Any charges, if anyone filed a case against you, civil or criminal proceedings is going on, okay, for this corporation, in the name of this corporation. Now to defend themselves, what the corporation will do? They will appoint a good lawyer to save them. Now appointing lawyer means the corporation needs to pay the fees to the lawyer, court fees, etc., to defend themselves. That charges, whatever they are going to pay to defend themselves, that also they can spend from that ESI fund. Or any type of expenditure for the improvement of health or for the welfare of the insured person, they can spend from this fund, or any other expenditure. You can do it, but you have to take permission from the central government. So subject to approval of central government, you can spend other. So this is one of the big question may come, and yes, whatever is coming to your mind, you can write, but it must be related to the corporation. So whatever amount is spending from the corporation side, it for anything like any expenditure, contract, audit, medical treatment, benefits, whatever is there, all corporation can spend from that fund, towards which the contribution is coming from the employers and employees. Next is, acha, till this any question?
No, ma'am. Clear.
Now, till now, whatever we have read, like ESI fund, ESI corporation, contribution from the employees towards this fund, utilization of the fund. So, in all these things, dispute may arise. So, in case if any dispute arise between employer-employee, okay, employer-employee, or relating to payment of contribution or claim for recovery or claiming the amount, or you are in a hospital but you are claiming the amount but you are not getting the amount on time. They are doing unnecessary delay in payment of this amount, or else you are getting less amount what is expected to amount to receive. So many dispute may arise. Now for clearing these disputes or for solving these disputes, this employees insurance court is there. So employees insurance court is there, who is having the jurisdiction to decide all these disputes, whatever he will bring relating to claims or any dispute between the employer-employees, or you have not followed the rules, or else relating to the recovery of money, okay, or else if you are not receiving the benefits on time. So in that cases, you can file an application before employees insurance court, okay, if you are having any insurance related dispute. Now, whatever claims you will do, like I'm not getting money or I'm not getting benefit, principal employer is not contributing the exact percentage, whatever claims you will do, that claims is going to be decided by your ESI court to whom you have applied. What type of claims can be decided by ESI court? Recovery of contribution from the principal employer. So already I have said, like, employer will contribute something, employee will contribute something. Now think, employer is deducting the employee's contribution from their wages, but employer is not contributing anything for the employees. So employee can go to court for recovery of that contribution amount from the employer. That for example, I'm the employee and there is my company is not contributing their contribution towards ESI, but they are deducting my contribution from my wages. Now, whenever I will come to know, like my organization is not contributing anything towards the ESI fund, I can go to the ESI court and I can complain against my organization that you have to recover the contribution amount from the employees. Got it? Employer. So this type of claim I can do. So recovery of contribution from the principal employer. Next is same thing, principal employer also can claim to recover the contribution from the immediate employer. Now, in a company, for example, there is a principal, immediate employer is there. Under him, principal employer is there. Under them, we are there, employees. Now, I report to principal employer and principal employer report to immediate employer. The principal employer is telling, I don't know anything. It is the work of immediate employer who used to contribute. Now, now what happens? I can't complain about immediate employer because I don't know him. I will complain about the principal employer. Principal employer is going to complain against the immediate employer. Actually, who is going to contribute? Got it? For example, in an organization, think Aditya is sitting as a main immediate employer. Under him, I am sitting and you two are employees. So you are reporting to me. I am responsible. I am liable to answer you. I am answerable to you. And Aditya is answerable to me. Now, whenever you are having any problem with Aditya, you are not going to Aditya. You will come to me that I am facing this problem. And I will go to Aditya that due to you, my employees are facing this problem. So this is a chain work. Got it? So that's why principal employer, if it's not the duty of the principal employer to contribute, and actually maybe it's the immediate employer's work, then principal employer also can go to court and can file a case against immediate employer and can claim the recovery. Next is claim against principal employer. Okay, if anything I am supposed to get the money from my employer, that claim also I can file before ESI court. Or any claims for the recovery of the benefit admissible. Benefit means the lump sum amount. I am in a hospital and now I need to pay the hospital bill. So I already admitted under the ESI hospital. Now the bill amount is going to be recovered from the ESI, that employer, principal employer. Now, principal employer is continuously delaying in payment of my hospital bill, and due to his delay, it is increasing. So, what I can go to ESI court and I can ask for the recovery of such benefit amount. Okay. Now, whatever I'm contributed means whatever I'm contributing, either employer or employees, those contribution we can recover. So recovery of such contribution, we can do it other than sickness or maternity or any other accidental situation. So normally under ESI Act, when its main objective, like we will get protection whenever we will become sick, or else whenever we met an accident, or else we are under a maternity leave, like that, maternity situation like that. Other than this complete sickness thing, we can claim the money from such fund. When, in case there is an area of land revenue. For example, you need to pay the loan or any rent for your land or your house, and you are unable to give because you don't have money. But your money and your contribution is already there in ESI fund. You can take claim that money to pay the arrear of land revenue. Okay, under section 45B. So only other than sickness you can recover in case if there is any arrear of land revenue from such ESI fund. And whenever you will claim that money from land revenue under section 45B, there is an authorized officer will be there who will issue a certificate. You have to apply, you have to file an application before them, and there you have to write, like you have to give a proper proof that I will become insolvent because I don't have money to pay as a for arrear of land revenue. So that's why I am claiming the money from ESI fund. There will be an authorized officer will be there who will verify whether you are telling correct thing or not, whether you are telling true or not. If you are telling true, they will verify the same and they will issue a certificate. And that certificate they will issue to the recovery officer. And from recovery officer, I can recover the amount under section 45C. So under ESI Act, what we read, its main act is to give us protection or give the protection to the worker or employees at the time of sickness, maternity situation, or during the accident, or whenever during the medical things. But other than all these things, only there is one factor. Due to that, means for that reason, you can claim your contribution from ESI fund. That is only the arrear of land revenue. You just mark this. This maximum times comes in MCQ. Okay. Other than sickness, where you can, means for what reason you can claim the money from ESI fund, or means for what purpose you can withdraw your contribution from ESI fund other than sickness or medical matters. So that is arrears of land revenue under section 45B. Now, if any dispute arise under ESI, now there needs to be verification whether you are telling true or not. For any disputes, for example, you say to your principal employee that I am sick, I need to do operation, and for that I need to withdraw money, or I'm claiming some money from ESI fund. Now, whether you are telling true fact about this operation or not, this need to be verified first by your principal employer. Then only they will accept your claim. Maybe you are just telling like I am sick, or I need to do the operation, or I need to do the operation of my family. So without verification, how they can give the money or benefits to you? So they need to do the proper verification. Now for this verification, this type of decision actually needs to be taken by the medical board, medical appeal tribunal, ESI court. They will verify whether your actual accident or operation or the factor, sickness factor, whether it is eligible, you are eligible to receive money under ESI or not. That is going to be verified by the ESI court, obviously, with a consultation with medical appeal tribunal as well as medical board. Any one of them can take the decision or can verify whether you are telling true or not, or they can take the decision jointly also. Now there are other bodies also other than corporation. I already said like one body is ESI corporation, which is actually formed by central government. Now ESI corporation is a body corporate. Now all these factors is not possible for only ESI corporation to take care. So that's why under ESI corporation they will form many bodies, like maybe medical board or standing committee they will form, so that jointly these committees will do the work under ESI corporation. So now we are going to read some other bodies of corporation. There are some bodies of corporation which are usually formed by the corporation only for their benefit. So when the corporation will take any decision, they will take the decision with after consultation with these bodies. First is corporation will form or establish standing committee. There is a standing committee they will form, which will consist a chairman. From corporation itself, 3 members they will take. 3 members of the corporation, and 3 members will represent state government. 3 members they will take from state government, who will give the advice from the government perspective. And other 8 members they will select. Out of 8 members, 3 members from the corporation who will represent the employer. So 3 from employer. Next is 1 member, they will represent the medical profession. Obviously, this is all about medical treatment and all. One doctor must be there authorized. So 1 person will come as a member who must be from the medical profession. 1 member among the members of the corporation, and that 1 member must be elected by the parliament, and Director General of Corporation. So you will get similarity, same like constitution of corporation only. The chairman members, some members will represent employers, some members will represent government, some members will represent from the medical profession, some members will be elected by the parliament, and finally 1 person will be there, that is Director General of Corporation ex officio. So I already said all the documents of the corporation can be authenticated or will become valid only by the signature of this person, Director General of the corporation. And these committees' term of office is 2 years. That means this committee is formed for 2 years. These people, whoever will be appointed, this chairman, 3 members, they will hold their position or they will hold the office for 2 years. And what is the power of this standing committee? They will actually administer the affairs of the corporation. So whatever affairs will be done by the ESI corporation, its full is going to be administered by this standing committee. They will exercise any other power or any other function of the corporation. For example, corporation is very busy. The corporation alone cannot handle all the work. So in such cases, ESI corporation can delegate certain function or work to standing committee, who will do on behalf of ESI corporation. May submit any case or matter for the decision of the corporation. And if corporation needs any help relating to any decision of the case, corporation cannot take the decision of any case. They need help. So in such cases, standing committee is going to help the corporation to take the decision relating to that case. So this is about this committee. So this also you will read, because sometimes short note comes, like short note on standing committee. Then this much is enough. You have to write about standing committee, which is formed by ESI corporation, and you have to write their powers, terms of office and constitution. Next board is Medical Benefit Board Council. Medical Benefit Council. This is also a board which is also established by ESI corporation for their benefit only. Because whoever works under ESI corporation, they need to verify whether they will sanction the scheme to the employees or not. And for understanding that, they need to know whatever accident or whatever sickness happens to the employees, whether this sickness is genuine or not, whether sickness will come under the ESI Act or not. So for that, they need some skilled people, and that's why they usually form all this board, and under this board they appoint all these skilled people. So Medical Council, Benefit Council, here also these are the members they will take. One is Director General of ESI, who will be the ex officio chairman before. Director General they will take for the health services. Co-chairman, ex officio co-chairman, who will understand something about the health. medical commissioner of the corporation, who will be also ex-officer. One member they will take, who will represent each state. They will represent state government other than union territories. 3 members they will take from employers, 3 members they will take from employees, and 3 members will come from the medical profession, and out of 3, 1 must be woman, mandatory. So this is the composition of the people under this board, that is Medical Benefit Council. And once you form this Medical Benefit Council, the term of office is 4 years. So these people will hold the office continuously for 4 years. After 4 years, they can be reappointed, or else they can be replaced with the new person. What are the duties of these members under Medical Benefit Council? They will give advice to ESI Corporation as well as standing committee. Relating to what? Relating to administration of medical benefits, certification about this matter, because they are not so much skilled about this medical things. That's why they will appoint all these people from the health or doctors like that. So they will give advice to the corporation. So their main duties is to give advice to ESI Corporation and to standing committee relating to the medical benefits. And also their main work is to do the investigation. So whatever employees will claim money from ESI fund when they will become sick. Now you are sitting in an authority, you have to understand whether this sickness is genuine or not. And to understand this, whether this sickness is genuine or not, whether for this sickness you are eligible to receive the amount from ESI fund or not, you have to do proper investigation. And who does this proper investigation? This Medical Benefit Council. So this is their duties. So basically these 2 board is very important, standing committee as well as Medical Benefit Council. Usually short note may come on this. Now this is almost common, disqualification of this member. So whoever members are there working under corporation or the standing committee or the Medical Benefit Council, those members can become disqualified, or this member can be removed also due to the disqualification. Now what do you mean by the term disqualification? This is same for everywhere, like we have read from Indian Contract Act itself, like what do you mean by disqualification? You will see same line. So for example, unsound mind, if he become insolvent, okay, or this you have to read, if he has directly or indirectly by himself or by his partner interest in any subsisting contract, okay, with or any work being done for the corporation except as a medical practitioner, as a shareholder of the company. So if you are having any interest which may cause harm to others, and whatever interest you are showing, this is not any medical things. So in such cases, if your interest is detrimental or prejudice, or it's not as per law, then also you will become insolvent, you will become disqualified. Means you are the member sitting under this committee, but you are taking the undue gains, you can say. You are taking the benefits from such committees, and which is fraudulently you are taking the benefits. You should not take the benefits. Okay. So if you are doing, though, if you are taking any interest, or if you are showing any interest which is actually not correct or not as per law, illegal or unlawful, then you will become disqualified and you can be removed from your position. And in case if you are convicted for an offense involving moral turpitude, and if you murder anyone, or if you convicted for an offense, okay, if you do any type of fraudulent activity, or if you involve yourself in scam, if you become insolvent, so for any type of offense convicted by the court, you will become disqualified. So these members of these committee, they can hold office for 4 years in case of medical benefit council, or 2 years in case of standing committee. But yes, before this 2 years or 4 years, these people can be removed in case if they become disqualified as per law. And also, before their tenure, they can resign. They can resign, the members of corporation, the members of standing committee, the members of medical benefit council. They can resign, but they have to submit their resignation letter directly to the CG, central government, and that is also in writing. Okay, so they can resign. They should not give their resignation letter to the corporation. So to whom they will submit? They will submit in writing to central government. This is the system of their resignation. Cessation. What do you mean by cessation? Cease. I am seize your position. Like whoever members are there under these corporation, standing committee or medical benefit council, they cannot do their work. That means seize. I am seizing their position. Okay. In case if they don't attend the 3 consecutive meetings. Got it? So obviously the members' work is like a board of directors. So they should attend the meeting. They should take the decision. Continuously, if any member of such board fails to attend 3 consecutive meetings, then those members can be seized or can be removed or can be declared as a disqualified from such committee. So this is the condition, that is, if they continuously fails to attend 3 consecutive meetings, they shall cease to be a member. They cannot be a member. They will be removed from the position of member. So they will be ceased to be a member from such of such board. And yes, government is having separate rules. Whenever they will comply with such rules, then again their membership can be restored by corporation, standing committee or medical benefit council. Got it? So these are about the members resignation, members appointment, members cessation, disqualification. Any question? I know it's very lengthy. Still, any question?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now it's about penal provision. This you can read if you can remember, like this is not mandatory because this is all about penalties. So whatever rules and regulation till we have read under ESI Act, if you fails to follow or if you don't follow, then obviously there are penal provisions. That means there are punishment. First punishment will come under section 84 and next it will come under 85. Now 84 to 86 is total coming under penal provisions, but you have to remember like this. Section 84 is coming one provision separately. Under 85, A, under 85, B to G will come. Okay. Next again under 85, caps A, caps B, caps C will come. If you want to remember the section in this way, you can do it. And 86 is certain provisions mentioned. So let's see. As per section 84, penalties are there for making wrong or false statement by the insured person with a view to take any benefit. So if you want to take benefit, your sickness must be genuine. Okay. You cannot give a fake story, and by telling a fake story, you cannot claim the amount from ESI fund. Got it? So if you are an insured person, whatever you are telling, you should tell something you should have that evidence for that. Got it? And in case if you are telling any type of wrong, or if you are giving any type of wrong or false statement with a hope of getting the benefit, then if you are caught, punishment is there. Jail is up maximum 6 months, fine maximum 2,000 or both, jail and penalty, fine both. Under 85, non-compliance is there for various provisions. Now I said under 85, first provision they have given A, subsection A, and next is 85, subsection B to G. 85A is telling if any employer fails to pay the contribution. So under ESI, towards ESI fund, both employers and employees contribute. Now, if employers fails to contribute towards this fund, then jail will be minimum 1 year, maximum 3 years, fine 10 years. In case if your jail is minimum 6 months is declared, then they will reduce the fine from 10 to 5. Got it? So if you get more imprisonment term, like between 1 year to 3 years, then they will increase the fine also, 10,000. And in case if they reduce the imprisonment term, that is minimum 6 months he must be in jail, then in fine amount also they will reduce from 10,000 to 5,000. If 85B to G is telling, other than contribution, if they commits any type of offense for non-compliance, that means till now whatever rules and regulation we have discussed, if such rules and regulations are not followed by the employers, and these rules and regulation is excluding the paying contribution, because contribution penalty already we have read this under section 85 subsection A. This is about other than contribution, other rules and regulation, whatever is mentioned under this act, and if the employers don't follow this, then maximum 1 year jail and fine is maximum 4,000 or both, depends on your crime. Next come 85 cap say. If any employer convicted by the court for an offence punishable under the act committing the same offence. That means if employer are committing same offence, that means for example think an employer was punishable for not contribution towards ESI fund. Now he is continuing his offence, means for the whole year he has not contributed. That means he is committing the offence, same offence repeatedly. So if he is committing the offence repeatedly and same offence if he is doing again, then for that punishment will be different. Jail will be minimum 2 years, maximum 5 years, fine is 25,000. Next is, this is 85B is about corporation, that is ESI corporation. ESI corporation may recover damage from the employer by way of penalty. That means till 85A we have read, employer is not following the rules, employer. Now whenever the employer is not following the rules, so obviously corporation is sitting above, the corporation is having right to take the penalty or fine for not following such rules from the employers. Now here comes, and corporation may recover such damage amount from the employer by the form of penalty under section 85B. Got it? So the amount of damages, whatever the ESI corporation will face due to employer or due to the employer's failure of following the rules and regulation, that damage amount will be recovered from the employer by the ESI Corporation under Section 85B. And in case employer think under Section 85C is all about, an employer is convicted for an offence of non-payment of contribution under this Act. So whenever the employer will not pay the contribution, and for that, whenever they will be convicted for such offence, they will be convicted under Section 85C, and for that, punishment and imprisonment will be there, which may extend to 1,000 for every day default. This already we have read, you know, here. Where? Here. See, 85 subsection small a. Here we have already read, employer fails to pay the contribution. So this is their penalty amount. Now, if they continues the same offence, like if they are not contributing after paying penalty also, then along with this penalty amount, if each day they will add 1,000 rupees. That is written in 85C. So along with the existing penalty, for their default every day 1,000 will be added until and unless they pay the contribution or they pay the penalty along with the contribution, whatever is due pending. And finally, under 86, some important provision is there, that is, no prosecution under this Act shall be instituted without previous sanction of the Insurance Commissioner. That means what happened, whenever this Act will become applicable, got it, during this time, no case can be filed relating to these insurance related things without the permission of the Insurance Commissioner. First, you have to take permission of the Insurance Commissioner, then you can file any case against anyone relating to this ESI matter. Second provision is, no court inferior to that metropolitan magistrate or judicial magistrate of the first class shall try any offence under this Act. So, you know, magistrate means judge, okay, magistrate. So, magistrate is having different classification of magistrate, first class magistrate, metropolitan magistrate, civil judge, all these are the classification. So, whenever ESI Act is applicable or under ESI Act, these people, metropolitan magistrate or judicial magistrate, first class magistrate, these people cannot take care of your case or cannot try your case. This is the second provision you have to remember. And thirdly, no court shall take cognizance of any offence under this Act except on a complaint made in writing. Until and unless any person is filing a case in writing before the court, no one is going to give importance to your case. So, no court is going to entertain your case until and unless complaint means the party who is not satisfied, who is aggrieved or any dispute arise, the party should file the complaint in writing. So, if there is no complaint filed in writing, court is not going to entertain such case. So, these three important provisions you have to remember under ESI Act. First case is, no case can be filed or no case can be proceeded without permission of Insurance Commissioner. Second is, there are different classification of magistrate is there. So, first class magistrate as well as metropolitan magistrate cannot try any type of insurance related case. Thirdly, until and unless any complaint is filed in writing, no court is going to entertain your case. Clear? So, this is all about your ESI Act 1948.